When you enter the world as an adult, the work world, it is like an arena, it is like a boxing match. If you expect everybody to be good in this world, you're in a lot of trouble. Are you going to be like complaining and blaming the fact that it is a boxing ring, or are you going to be smart and intelligent about it? I want you to be in life to have this kind of composure, this stance like a warrior, and if some kind of crap comes your way, you know how to fight. When you enter the world as an adult, the work world, it is like an arena, it is like a boxing match. Some people play by a different set of rules. Some people abide by it, some people don't. They hit below the belt, they hug you, they do all kinds of things that you're not supposed to do. And this is like human nature. So Schopenhauer has this quote that if you're walking down the street and you hit your foot against a rock, you don't go get angry at the rock, right? Well,
Sure.
People are rocks in your way sometimes.
Right.
They're just, and I don't mean that to depersonalize them. I mean in the sense that they are who they are, they have their own nature, and that nature isn't yours, and it's going to clash with you sometimes. And that is just what it means to be a human being, an adult in the world today, in any world. So are you going to be like complaining and blaming the fact that it is a boxing ring? Are you going to complain that people have a nature where they have an ego, where they're full of envy, where they're passive aggressive? And then in the process of complaining, you're putting yourself at a continual disadvantage because you're draining yourself with all these useless emotions, and you're not playing proper defense against them because you're all consumed with kind of personalizing the situation? Or are you going to have some distance and be like a boxer in a ring and be smart and intelligent about it, And I just think it's a brilliant metaphor for life. It's a brilliant metaphor for being in control and for accepting the fact that some people play a little bit dirty, some people are going to hit you, it's going to hurt, but you don't whine and complain, you just figure out how are you going to defend yourself better. Conflict is kind of inherent in the human condition. So your path through life is never going to be easy. There's always going to be resistance. There's always going to be people who oppose you. When I wrote the war book, the other metaphor was the samurai warrior. That was a major theme in it. And Musashi talks about the stance of the warrior.
Yeah.
And it's the stance that matters. It's how you meet the adversary, how you position yourself, how you're calm, how you position the sword, and how you're ready for the attack. The attack might not come, or the opponent might just give up and walk away, or there may be somebody who come from behind, but you're ready, you're prepared, you're in the proper stance. So I always think of it kind of in those terms. Are you prepared? So I don't want people to be paranoid. I don't want them to go around thinking everybody's evil and they're about to attack me. I want you to be in life to have this kind of composure, this stance like a warrior. You're prepared for the worst. You're not expecting the worst, but you're prepared for it if it happens. And if some kind of crap comes your way, you know how to fight, you know how to defend yourself, and you know how to get out of bad situations. And I say that because I myself, before I wrote the book, I violated a lot of times. The stance that I was in was all wobbly, I was too emotional, I wasn't strong, I wasn't like in a firm position, etc. So many people in life, they're bad strategists. Most people are awful strategists because they're locked in the past and they're constantly repeating what worked a week ago, a month ago, a year ago. They don't look at the individuals they're dealing with, their employees, and say, this person has a particular psychology, this one's very different. I have to approach each person differently. They take the path of least resistance and they do this kind of cookie cutter approach where I'm just going to apply the same strategies to each person. You're not trying to repress your emotions because, first of all, you can't. We are emotional animals. And if ever you have tried to repress your emotions, particularly in a state of meditation, you see you have zero control over them, right? They're popping up. It's the way we're wired. So the proper stance is I'm not going to repress emotions, but I'm going to understand them. I'm going to see them as they occur with a degree of distance. I'm going to see that I'm angry in this moment. I'm going to almost like I like to imagine it as if I'm like 6 inches away from myself. I don't know why that metaphor come up. And I'm looking at what I'm thinking or feeling from that distance, almost from the outside. And I'm still feeling it, but I'm seeing it as if I'm another person. I know this is a strange concept, but you can observe your own emotions while you're feeling them. And then they don't have power over you. Then you can say, okay, I'm angry. Why am I angry? So number one, I recognize the emotion. Number two, why am I angry? Does it stem from something weeks ago, months ago, or earlier today? And then what do I do with my anger? Sometimes you want to use your anger. You want to channel your anger. So when you're in sports, if you don't have that kind of drive and that anger, I don't know, hatred or something, you just despise the enemy, you're going to crush them, right? You use that emotion. But as Phil Jackson said, if that emotion controls you throughout 48 minutes of a game, you're useless. You drain yourself, right. You can't control it. You make mistakes. So you need to be focused, but you also need to be able to use those emotions. That's where I use that metaphor of the rider and the horse, which I've repeated many, many times. Machiavelli has that quote, so that if you expect everybody to be good in this world, you're in a lot of trouble. You know, what are you going to do when you deal with people who aren't good? But yeah, you have to be willing to get your hands dirty. So let's say a classic example, like there's a cause that's very important to you, like the climate, or, justice in America, racial justice in America, all very important issues that most of us believe in. If you have to be willing to get down and dirty here, because you're playing with politics, you're playing with people who are going to resist, you're playing with major corporations who are going to bust your balls, who are going to be incredibly manipulative and downright evil in co-opting your good idea and kind of, neutralizing it. So if you're going to if you want to create something, if you want to actually have results, you have to be willing to get a little dirty, and you have to be willing to be strategic. You have to understand that the other side might not be playing by the same rules that you're playing with. A lot of warfare is with asymmetry, not just of weapons, but also of ethics. And I talk in my books about two people, Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King, and how at certain moments where they were so invested in the results of getting the English out of India, of bringing racial justice to America, that they were willing to do things that were actually a bit kind of manipulative, downright manipulative. He was putting these children in danger because it was Bull Connor, whoever was the sheriff at the time. You had the whips out and everything, but he knew that it was going to play on television in white people's homes in Chicago, who had they didn't have an image of America being like this. They never saw the dogs being taken out and the whips and the water cannons, and he was going to put it on your television set. And Gandhi's strategy was exactly the same. They didn't have television back then, but in his Salt March, he literally was inviting his followers to be beaten up, clubbed by the English police or whoever it was. And that would be in the newspapers. And English people who were very liberal and thought their country was, the great hope of the world, be reading in this paper about defenseless people being clubbed, and it would turn them against the empire. It's not natural for us to get outside of ourselves. Our natural position, which is sort of what I talked about in human nature, about our narcissism that we all have, is I have a great idea. Everybody must think it's a great idea.
Right.
I think the world is this way and should be this way. Everybody should be feeling that way, It's just natural.
Sure.
But it takes effort to get outside of yourself and to imagine that people come from different cultural backgrounds. They weren't raised like you. They're a different gender. They're a different race. They have different backgrounds and different belief systems. To try to think about that, and to also think about the universal qualities that all people share, And so the problem, if you could boil down the problem with humans into one line, it's the fact that they're always taking the path of least resistance. They don't want to put effort, and it requires effort to strategize, to think of your opponent, to think of what makes them different. It takes strategy to think of what will persuade them, what will get people to join your cause. It takes effort to get outside of yourself, to see how other people might view it. But we don't want to do that. We want to just be lazy and just assume that everyone's on our side. Love is a passion. All the other passions are very inward moving, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're about you.
Yeah.
They're about your anger. They're about your frustration. Yes, you could be angry because some people are doing some really fucked up things to you at some point, right? So it's not completely you, but the emotion is geared towards how you feel, and you want to get retribution if someone's hurt you. You want revenge, you know? So it's all very kind of self-centered. But love is the one emotion that forces you outside of yourself. True love, because there can be fake love, where you're really, it's just a form of narcissism, where you want people to give you the attention and feed the image you have of yourself. But true love, the ability to get outside of yourself and to feel what other people are feeling, which is empathy. And empathy, which is a word I'm afraid it's overused, and I'm getting a little tired of it. I wish we could find a better word. But it's a major theme in the Sublime, because the idea is the highest mental power that we humans have, the source really of our intelligence, is what they call theory of mind, that we are able to place ourselves in the bodies and the minds of other people. What's made us the supreme social animal. And it's not only just for love, it's also for fighting your opponent, etc., and for dealing any kind of social situation. But it's the source of all of our intelligence, right? It's the source of our science. A great scientist like Einstein is thinking inside the very subjects he's trying to get into, right? So that's the source of our power. And so high-level empathy, where you're able to think inside of other people, to kind of imagine what they are going through, what their feelings are, is to me the highest passion of all, which is a form of love, and it is extremely sublime. If you want to win this war, and let's call it a war against this type of thinking, you can't just like get angry and close the door on them and just say, go away, you're evil, you're bad. We have to live with them, right? They're in our midst every day. And so if our politicians and people in charge were smart, which they're not, they would have that mentality. They would have the idea that you can't just alienate people and antagonize them and push them further into their corner. When I'm meditating, I become extremely aware that thinking is almost a form of a disease. I get that idea constantly as I'm meditating. Like, thoughts are coming up, and they're negative thoughts. 90% of the thoughts that come up uncontrollably are about anxiety. They're about people who've done things to you that you don't like. It's about problems with people, etc. So many of the thoughts are negative, and you're anticipating, as you say, negative things happening to you. And it's almost like thinking is the problem itself, because it divorces you from the moment.
Right.
So I often have the idea as I'm meditating, there's a world out there that has nothing to do with me, that's completely indifferent to Robert Greene. The birds could care less about my fate. The trees don't know anything about my existence. The sky doesn't care at all about me, right? Okay, that's the reality, that's the world. But my thinking creates this thing as if I'm the most important thing in the universe, that everything that happens is going to happen to me and is going to be bad, etc. So to be able to see that thinking traps you so many times into patterns, that you've been programmed to respond to situations, a lot of times by anxiety, like thoughts pop up about, I've got to do this phone call, or, oh, I forgot to email that person, or damn, this interview's coming up and I don't want to do it, or blah, 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 blah. So much of the thoughts are anxieties that you're anticipating what's going to happen, right? If you can just control that, if you could just see that is the source of your problem, and that the world is indifferent to you, and that the circumstances are totally neutral, and that newspaper article that comes out, you can't control it, and maybe the bad stuff will actually in the end rebound to your favor, or it'll make you tougher, it'll make you realize certain things. If you can just see them as facts, as opposed to like these horrible things inside your head, these phantasmos, whatever the Latin word is, then you've got the power. You're walking around in your world and you're kind of sleepwalking. You're not paying attention to things, and you're not really seeing things as they are. But being aware of where things come from, of what they are, of what their true nature is, that's sort of how the children think, because they're constantly curious. They just don't assume that something just came into the world the way it is. They want to know how and they want to know why. So you live in a world where you're surrounded by things that exist that kind of, you don't really know where they come from or what makes them so interesting, and you're not paying attention to it.